Another day, another project. So you can guess what we're doing, and that is going to be ground control coilovers on the front of the car. So let's kind of go over what we've done so far. I've done the rear subframe reinforcements. I've stitch welded the rear trailing arm pockets, rust repaired everything there. From there, we installed the S52 headers, the Spec E46 exhaust. Found out that the clutch was slipping, so we threw in a Clutch Max Stage 2. Along the way, we threw in some poly bushings here and there, and that brings us to this point thereabouts. So one thing I did last night, the boring stuff, was throw out the old Sachs shocks, and these are perfectly fine, not leaking, so I'm going to be reselling these, and put on some Coney rears. Here's a shot of those things right now. These are some Coney oval racing rear shocks that ground control made some special rear shock mount adapters for, and it runs just fine on this car. So that brings me to the front of the car. We're going to be taking out these front struts. I don't know what they are, and we're going to be replacing them with some ground control coilovers, which would be a Coney insert with some race camber plates. Additionally, we're going to be cutting the strut tower so we can get maximum camber and caster, because this is going to be a race car build. Okay, welcome back to an old school style of videos where I do a bunch of work to the car and only film when I'm taking breaks in between. Anyways, as you can see here, the front coils are on, and there's about 5 degrees of negative camber. You can also tell that the front end is absolutely dumped, and we're gonna have to go ahead and fix that. And here is a quick look at how I'm able to achieve close to 5 degrees of negative camber. You just gotta cut the strut towers, easy as that. So basically it takes a long time, that's why I didn't film any of it, but the tower's cut, the reinforcement plate's cut, and then there's a retaining ring or reinforcement ring that ground control also gives you. And all of that needs to be slotted this much, just so you can get maximum camber and maximum caster. Again, might not be to your taste if you don't want to modify the body of your car permanently, but for something that's going to see the track for the rest of its life, don't care. So we got a pile of parts right here. It's mainly 1-inch spring spacers. This is going to raise up the front end by 1 inch. That's going to give me the ride height I need. And then we got a bunch of helper coils or helper springs and some couplers, and that's going to help me get the rear springs on, because these short boys are not going to really hold themselves in when the suspension is at full droop. We also got some eBay camber arms, so we're going to toss these guys in, and then the whole suspension build portion of this project is going to be done. Alright, a little bit more progress. Front end is done. You can see I now have a 2-finger, slightly more on this side, but a 2-finger gap on the other side. Before it was tucking. So I got that inch back, pretty happy about that, and I have a little bit of adjustability to go down if I need to. The rear is mid-progress, so we got the ground control reinforcement plate on, a set of J or Z rear perches, the HR 5.5-inch length spring, the coupler, and then the helper, which is compressed most of the way already, and then the J or Z top perch. Again, ground control uses 2.5-inch ID springs. These are a mix of 2.5 and I think 60 millimeters on a 2.25 ID perch. Whatever it is, it works. All this stuff is pretty much captive and nothing rotates, so I'm not really worried about it, especially now that I have the helper, so nothing's going to really fall out of place. And yeah, so that's how that rear end looks. Again, these are some old school ground controls, so you can see this is the race Heim joint adapter for the rear shock mount. Usually they don't do that, but this is what it is. And to adjust these guys, you have to unbolt the bottom shock and then you pry this cover up. Well, I can't pry because it's clipped in pretty good, but there's a button under this dust cover and you press the button down while twisting the shock body and it pushes, or it goes into some detents, and then you get 4 clicks thereabouts. So pretty cool deal. I don't know how well this is going to work, especially with this setup, because these spring rates, I don't know if ground control spec them out this way to even handle something as high as 900 pounds. But there we have it. So the last step of the process is to just throw on these rear camber arms. Went ahead, took them apart, anti-seized all the threads, so it's ready to go in, but it's late, and we're going to save that work for tomorrow. And then we're going to play around with ride height. This garage is totally not level, which is also why there's more gap on this side than that side, even though the perches are set pretty much the same. So we'll figure out how to do ride heights, but essentially an E36 is an E46, so we're replicating the E36. Alright, so you saw the rear arms get put on. I then sent it out for an alignment, which took a couple days too many because the shop had never worked on one of these cars with trailing arms, so they just didn't know how to adjust it properly. But I finally got everything done, so let's take a look at all this negative camber we got. That's in the front, and the rear is also pretty negative too. So let's take a look at that spec sheet. It's negative 4.3 and 4.4 up front. I have 8 degrees of caster, which is amazing. That's about double what I have on the E36, and it's pretty even. And then the total toe is negative 0.01 toe out. For the rear, I got negative 3.7 and 3.6 in the back. It's a little bit too much, but struggling with this shop, I decided to just leave it alone. It's about 0.3 more than I really want. Total toe in the back is 0, but there is a little bit of dog walking with this car because it says negative 0.2 and positive 0.2 on each individual side. But driving it home, didn't notice any issues with it at all, and I'm just glad this thing is aligned and ready to go for the next track day. So the only thing I have left to do is throw on some brake pads. I'm going to go with Hawk ER-1s, so we're going to time lapse that, nut and bolt check everything, and then we're going to be teched and ready to go for my first track day with the Stimmy Package ZHP. Now with the car done, we're going to do one last thing, and it's take off the joke JRZ stickers, because we are actually running ground controls now, so there is some type of suspension on here. And now it's time to do a walk around. Alright, here's the Stimmy Package ZHP in its current form. Probably going to stay this way for at least a month, and I'm going to be glad that I don't have to work on this thing. Bedded in the brakes. As you can see, I threw on some decals on the windshield and also on the side skirts. Side skirt ones point out where the jack pads are, so that's going to be pretty nice, so I don't have to kneel over every single time I need to jack this car up, which is very, very often. Besides that, I'm liking how the ground control coilovers are feeling right now. They're a pain to adjust, but now that the ride height's all set up with a 1/2 inch of brake, I'm pretty happy with it. I actually turned some knobs in the front and actually drove a lot better and wasn't so crashy with no rebound. And well, hopefully later this month or before next month, we're gonna do a rear diff on this thing. I got something up my sleeve for that, trying to work my way through it. And then after the diff, it's really just safety equipment and stripping the interior, because we got to make sure we get the right seat, the right harness, and the right steering wheel set up for the car before I build a cage around it. So thank you for sticking through this video with me, and hope you enjoy and follow for more.